This is a podcast by the News Minute, and you are listening to South Central.
Hello and welcome to South Central, a TNM podcast where we put the South at the center. I am Dhanya Rajendran, your host. In this week's episode, we look at the row over Infosys laying off people. And then we look at the official and unofficial censorship of India's movies. Let me quickly introduce my guests for the show today. And of course, co-host Leena Reghunath, journalist and lawyer. Pooja Prasanna is missing again this week. Leena, so you will be reading the headlines?
Yes, I'm on duty.
Okay. And joining us in the studio is the executive editor of the News Minute, making his second appearance on South Central, Sudipto Mondal.
Thanks, Dhanya.
And political social commentator Tara Krishnaswamy is also back at South Central. Public demand for Tara. So we decided to make her appear once a month, right, Tara?
Good job getting my designation right. Very happy to be here.
Thank you. And joining us from New Delhi is senior journalist Anna Vetticad. Most of you must be familiar with her face when she used to work for television and now with her written word. Anna, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Dhanya.
So the big announcement this week is that the News Minute is turning 11, and personally, I am starting to feel like a senior citizen. For those unaware, the News Minute was started in 2014. I was a journalist working with a mainstream media organization, a TV channel, as a South India bureau chief. I couldn't just go back to TV. That's when I quit. And along with two co-founders, Vignesh Vellore and Chitra Subramaniam, we started the News Minute as a very small organization. I was clueless in the beginning as to what to do with it. The only thing that I knew very clearly is that we will focus on Southern India. The reason, because when I was working with this national media, what I want to call as Delhi channels, the focus was always Delhi and Bombay. I used to feel like a marketing agent, putting my hands up saying that please pay attention to the story happening in some southern state. So I decided that a media house which puts southern stories on the map, puts focus on them, that's what I want to build. That's what we want to build. Over the years, we have had brilliant journalists work at the News Minute, and a lot of them continue to do so. We have focused on gender, women, children, caste, minorities, politics. In the last 2 or 3 years, we've also done very good investigations. We have won awards for these investigations, and we hope to do more. So for all of those listening and watching, if the News Minute has ever empowered and educated you, then this is a time for you to take a subscription, because we badly need independent media, and it's also your birthday present to us. So we have an offer. If you take one subscription, you can gift a subscription to a friend. So 2 subscriptions for the price of 1. Do click on the link and take that gift subscription.
Right. And Dhanya, if I can add a quick point over here as to where this subscription money goes. As we speak right now, there are 2 teams out on the ground collecting information for some very important stories, public interest stories. I have just come back after doing a couple of episodes of What's Yourism, in one in Budapest and one in Wayanad. You know, all of this costs money. And,
but Budapest, you did not go on subscriber money.
Yeah, you didn't pay for the Budapest thing. I had got invited for a conference there. All I'm trying to say is that we try and do our work in the middle of all of this, cross-subsidize. We get an invitation somewhere. We use that invitation to also do some reporting in that place. That's how we are making ends meet. It's very difficult to do this, and your subscription money is what keeps us afloat.
Yeah, and imagine the last 2 days, all the so-called national media, in fact, I prefer calling them Delhi media, they have been discussing a joke. Literally, they have been sitting and discussing a bad joke. But we have been doing real reporting, read all our stories on manosphere. My colleague Lakshmi Priya has written a very long story on what is this manosphere, which is luring our teenage boys. We also are going to have a discussion with teenagers on it. So we've been trying to do meaningful work for all the past 11 years. Sometimes we have faltered, and we have welcomed all that criticism. So thank you for being with us and celebrate our 11th birthday. Okay, so now we will move
Send
to
us
the
gifts.
Yeah, we'll move to the headlines.
Yeah. So back to the headline duties. The first is Bangalore Metro is now India's costliest transit system after fare hike. Ridership dips by 4%.
And this also comes on the heels of the BMTC fare hike, the public bus in Bangalore. So I think public transport, traffic congestion in Bangalore deserves a longer discussion. In fact, public transport across cities, I think, is something that we should dedicate an episode to.
Sure, we'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and what kind of a message to send out to a city like Bangalore, which is known for the worst traffic situation in the country, to disincentivize public transport? I mean, great messaging.
The next headline, DMK MP moves bill to amend constitution for reservation in judicial appointments. This is the DMK MP and senior advocate P. Wilson, who on Friday moved a private bill in Rajya Sabha seeking to amend the Indian constitution to provide reservation for members in SC, ST and other backward classes, women and religious minorities in judicial appointments.
He's also asked for the state governments to have a say in judicial appointments. But that's pretty important, right? I mean, that's a point which a lot of critics have said, that our judiciary does not have representation.
And that is something that is so clearly reflected in some of these judgments. For instance, I mean, just to give you the example of the Atrocities Act, that one thing that everyone associates with the underclass, with oppression, caste oppression, things like that. Now, even today, if you see the conviction rates, they're so abysmal. And one of the main reasons for that is for the lack of a better word, the inability of the judges to see beyond just the letter of the law and embrace the spirit of the law, which means, for example, that they will always ask for proof that the person who's committed an atrocity would have known about the identity of the person that they are committing the atrocity against. Then there is another thing where they interpret the law to say that it should have happened in a public place. Otherwise it is not an atrocity. So many such aberrations we have seen happening in the courts, and it's often a result of the fact that the judge's identity coincides with that of the oppressing. Most positions in the higher judiciary, in a sense, are reserved because of the fact that people are coming from second, third, fourth generation families. Right, there are lawyering families, there are judging families, so to speak. There's a recent former Chief Justice of India whose family can trace its judicial history back to the Peshwas. Okay, so that's the kind of circuit that we are talking about breaking.
Right. As senior legal academician Mohan Gopal keeps saying that there is a caste oligarchy who controls the India Supreme Court and the other courts. Next one, help establish Ram Rajya. Fringe groups attack Hyderabad temple priest. This is where Chiklur Balaji temple chief priest C.S. Rangarajan was attacked at his home, and the police have arrested a man who allegedly attacked.
So this is some fringe. I don't know what is fringe anymore.
There's nothing.
It only leads me to once again say that we should do a little deeper study of these Telugu states and the Sanghi groups over there. So much of our focus has been on coastal Karnataka, or even for that matter North Kerala and all of these parts. Andhra, Telangana,
but this is another scam. I don't know if it's right wing and all that. This guy was building the Rama Rajya army, and he had a trust registered in 2022. If you go to his website, he's saying his name is Veera Raghav Reddy. To 20,000 rupees if you become part of the army. Where was he getting the money from? I don't understand. So I think the trust has to be investigated.
Next, everything is ho jayega. IAF chief raps HAL. The Indian Air Force chief Air Marshal AP Singh has pulled up the state-owned Hindustan Aeronautics Limited for its poor track record on timely delivery of the aircraft, blaming the agency of not being on mission mode.
No, it's tragic, comedic, all of it. Because see, why is the delay happening? Because the GE 404 engine, which is supposed to be imported, there's a problem with the import, and GE has not been delivering these engines, because of which HAL cannot fit it into the LCA and then deliver it. The larger point that it shows is how we have not yet progressed in this Make in India agenda, and how we are so crippled when there is some shortage of of supplies or some problem in the.
So Make in India is basically assembling stuff which are imported.
Yeah.
And that is also not coming on time.
Yeah, it's a Gujri market kind of a thing. No, you take one engine from somewhere, you take one seat from somewhere, you take wheels from somewhere, put a bike together. A lot of people who've been going to the area of India have also been talking about that, how 80-90% of some item is actually imported, and then they put a shell on top of it saying Make in India.
Right. Next one, and the final headline, NCW issues summons to YouTuber BeerBiceps and Samay Raina. This is YouTuber Ranveer Alhabadia, who's known as BeerBiceps, and comedian Samay Raina, passed a certain comments in their podcast, India's Got Latent, and which sparked a major controversy. And as you say, North Indian channels are busy discussing this joke.
Delhi channels have been. I saw a former boss of mine saying that all of you stop subscribing to BeerBiceps. He's used spirituality, he's used religion. You guys didn't know all this before? Like, are you waking up to this now? I just realized that they're all very jealous of each other. And they were just waiting for one opportunity to bring another down.
They're like, you are doing our job better and getting more eyeballs, so let's put a stop to it. But what I liked about what Ranveer did is apology came, like, a very popularly worded apology. He said, my comment was not only inappropriate, it wasn't even funny. Comedy is not my forte. I'm just here to say sorry. So I've never seen that kind of an open apology.
Comedy is not my forte. I think the case should be filed against NCW for frivolous use of their time.
Yeah, 100%. Right.
Yeah. You want to say something, Sudipto?
No, something mean. Just that, this. I've always seen his podcasts in which he only just, he barely says anything. Finally, he says something and he gets into some deep trouble.
Maybe that's why he doesn't say.
All he does, he doesn't counter somebody, he doesn't question somebody, he doesn't even do any research for his
I think
interviews.
Anna has something to add.
Yeah, Anna?
Yeah, every time the entire right wing rises up to speak out against something that seems so irrelevant, firstly, we have to question what is the planning behind this and whether this is a smokescreen for something else. For instance, I think very likely that next time, because there are liberals obviously who find this person obnoxious because he is part of the BJP's inner circle of social media influencers, right? So liberals have also gone along with it and had fun with this mobbing. But the next time, when there is a genuine case of free speech where a left liberal is being attacked, the right will use this as an example and say, look, we are equal opportunity offended. We were offended with Allahabadiya. We are offended with your people also. So I think we need to be very aware of that. B, maybe it's not planning. Maybe, when an extremist regime unleashes a mob, the mob sometimes goes out of control. So maybe this is genuinely a mob going out of control. Can I just say, though, that I don't have an issue with, of course, it was a crass joke. It's stupid, it's vulgar, it's really, really crude and shows how what his low thinking. But to me, actually, it isn't about vulgarity. If the NCW and gang were looking at it as a sexual harassment thing, because there is a power differential there, and you are asking. There's another video also that's come out on Instagram where this person is asking someone who I assume is a contestant. I don't watch this strange show, but I assume that person's a contestant, and this Allahabadiya guy is asking him in that video whether he will pleasure. Would you be willing to pleasure me? I'm putting that politely. To me, that's sexual harassment. If NCW or the cops or the whole of India were up in arms saying this is sexual harassment, I would go along with them. But for them, it's vulgarity. And this same crowd will laugh at us women, will laugh at us feminists, and say we have no sense of humor when we object to rape jokes. Rape jokes are jokes about actual crimes of violence that women face, and men also, but largely women. But there we are expected to have a sense of humor, and suddenly they all decided that they don't like this person. Why? Because for them, the threshold appears to be not violence against women or minorities or Dalits or anybody. For them, threshold is mummy daddy respect. He said something which they found disrespectful to amma, appa, mummy, daddy, which is what is really, I think, very troubling about this entire episode.
Yeah, and if I can just add about the smoke screen, I'm like a conspiracy theorist. So I really think that this is something that the government will use as an excuse to push for more censorship. Because remember when the digital media rules were brought in 2021, I actually forgot, though I'm the first person to have gone to court against digital media rules. For those unaware, I filed the first case along with The Wire. So at that time, I remember Ravi Shankar Prasad and Prakash Javadekar calling a press meet and justifying digital media rules. How? Because they said a lot of child pornography is available online. People are watching a lot of child pornography and videos of women getting assaulted. Therefore, we have to bring digital media rules, right? Digital media rules were not for child pornography or for women. It was for clamping down on websites which were critical of the government. Very simple. But what is a moral outrage you created? Oh, these rules will ensure there is no child pornography. So I think this can also be used, right? Attacking family values, mummy, daddy, to maybe bring censorship. So I think that this controversy, we may see the effect of it little later.
Can I just add one more point, actually? Because, you're a conspiracy theorist, so am I, Dhanya. The fact is, Ranveer Allahabadiya had a massive following with a certain kind of person. now, until now. Now, every single Indian knows this guy. So, in a sense, they have made him a vastly bigger celebrity than he was earlier. And look, a lot of the liberal ecosystem is defending a very obnoxious person as a free speech, as free speech defenders, when frankly he doesn't deserve for anybody to be wasting their time defending him, because he is a powerful person. He really belongs to the inner circle of those in power, so he doesn't need us. But the right wing has got us doing that and made him far bigger than he already was. Please add that to your conspiracy theory list.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not going to defend this guy. He can very well defend himself. He's really powerful, like Anna said, way more powerful than I think all of us in this room itself put together. Yeah, so he can defend himself. But theoretically, we don't agree with cases against anyone because we believe in free speech. So now let's go to the first topic of discussion. We'll spend around 20 minutes on this. This is on Infosys laying off people. Now, IT companies laying off people on the bench is not anything new. We have seen it increasing, especially after the pandemic, when the industry has been facing, a financial crisis. Now, the reason why this was in the news more than the others is the way Infosys dealt with it. We, in fact, spoke to 4 of those youngsters who were given the termination letters. My colleague Krishna spoke to them, and they said that they were on the bench for almost 2 years. They started working around 3 months ago, and they were given 3 evaluation tests. Now, they did not pass the evaluation test, is what the company is saying. These people are saying that the evaluation test itself was tweaked in a way that they would fail. It was deliberate. Now, whatever it is, whether they failed the test or they were made to fail the test, there's a way in which it can be communicated, right? But Infosys suddenly told all these people, take your laptops, come to the office. There are security guards in whatever army uniform sort of thing. And then they're brought inside, they're made to sign this voluntary agreement. They're dropped back in the hostel and said, vacate immediately. Like even the night you cannot stay back. So the women, the young women were all crying. They had to figure out how to stay over that night. It's the lack of dignity also, right? More than just a company taking a decision, which is based on, let us say, truthful evaluation. What's also angered people is the lack of dignity. Tara, what are your first thoughts?
This is very common, Dhanya. I mean, there are many reasons why a company might want to let go of people. In the ideal case scenario, somebody doesn't perform up to the mark. And even then, you try to see if they're a better fit for some other part of the company because you made a bad hiring decision or they're not a fit for the role or the assignment that you gave them. So, and then they are able to show that they perform better in the other place and you move to the other place, etc. That is the ideal case scenario. But that doesn't always pan out. You may not have an opening in the other place. The person may not be a fit for many other places where there are an opening. Even then, because it's 1 or 2 or 3 or a few people, even in a large company, a few people in every division or every group that you're letting go, you're able to go through the trouble of what, HR has laid out a process for you, a dignified process for you, where you keep having the conversation saying your performance is not up to snuff, your performance is not up to snuff. You get 3 chances, you get 2 chances, you get 1 chance, etc. And then you give them coaching so that they do better, right? Maybe they need some hand-holding, you do that. You buddy them up, you give them a mentor, etc. You go through the whole process. There is an HR process. At the end of it, it doesn't pan out and you say, sorry, we're unable to have you in this position anymore. Here's your severance and off you go. Now, this doesn't happen under certain circumstances. When there's a large number of people you need to let go, either because of a downturn in business or because there was something like an acquisition or something like that happened, merger acquisition that happened, where there is a great redundancy or overlap in job roles and you need to let go of a large number of people. In other words, the minute it goes from a small number of people to a large number of people, HR processes become very impersonal. Suddenly, you don't have the time to handhold people and be nice to them, right? This whole dignity goes out of the window because you suddenly have to let 300 people go. So how are you going to do it? Because they could all get together and stage a revolt. So the company is actually scared. US companies are even more scared because somebody could bring a gun into the office. Thankfully, in India, this doesn't happen. But it could be something else, right? It could be a knife. The minute you have multiple people being let go at the same time, there's always the fear that they will band together. So you want to minimize the time between when you say out and when they're actually out. You don't want to prolong that time. You don't want to give them time that says stay overnight because you can call people, you can arrange for reinforcements. So that's the way companies think because we can look at it in a very kind of cutthroat fashion, but the reality is they're also trying to protect the employees that exist. You don't want a backlash on those who are sitting there, because if something breaks out, it is also going to affect the people who are sitting there. They're also going to get caught in the crossfire. So you need to protect the existing employees.
So Tara has worked in the IT industry. So that's also a little bit of an insider perspective. Now, what I understand is that this bench thing that IT industries follow, to simplify it, is that let's say a project in which 1,000 people are working, at some point of time, you're going to have 1 or 2% attrition from that project. So you keep these people on the bench. So there will be one person on the bench who can be my replacement in case I quit, right? So for a large company like Infosys, they have so many people on the bench. And sometimes they are the first people to be let go if the company is also facing a financial problem, right? They have to cut down on their costs. But like you said, okay, the company does have an onus on protecting other people. I don't know, but despite all the criticism, why couldn't they have figured out some better way of doing this, Sudipto?
No. See, my thing is basically the framework within which these companies enjoy this kind of impunity to flout what are established laws of labor and how you handle employment. That is the moot point over here, not whether it makes sense in terms of business. Now, first and foremost is this entire thing of even having this bench strength. It is a way of hedging. It's a way of doing futures business with manpower, which means that, I project that in the next quarter or the next 6 months, I might get this kind of additional business for which I might need this kind of bench strength, so to speak. And these benches are made up of humans. I mean, that is not taken into consideration in this entire enterprise. And when that project, let's say, doesn't come about, then you can let go of this. It's literally like money in the bank. How you think about money in the bank, they're talking about people in the bank. So that is one thing. Now the question is, can you do this? You cannot do it as per the law of India, but in a place like Karnataka, so supposedly to promote industries, the entire IT sector was exempt in the 90s, from the 90s onwards, from following industrial employment guidelines, from following any labor policy. And the reasoning for that is, we are promoting, competitiveness and things like that. But in the end of the day, this is classic capitalism also, in a way, not in a way, in every which way. And that, I suppose, needs to get addressed. I just want to bring my attention to this one story that one of our colleagues did, Cora Abraham's story. It's called Tied to the Laptop, or Life in a... Dhanya, what is that? I mean, we'll share the screenshot with you. That has a detailed, analysis of how we came to this situation.
So basically, Cora explains in the story that even Tamil Nadu, for example, brought the IT sector under the labor guidelines, but Karnataka is still keeping them out. We did ask all the ministries. They said that there's a lot of pressure from the IT industry also. So whenever the government says you have to come under the labor guidelines, these guys will threaten saying, we'll leave the state and we will establish it somewhere else, and someone else will be ready to forego the rules, right? That's the reason why a lot of these things happen in the IT industry. And of course, the lack of unionization. That's what that story looked at.
And this lack of unionization, again, it's not just a capitalist thing, it's also a Savarna capitalist thing. Now, we must look at where the IT industry comes from, where this push for privatization came. This push for privatization came as against what existed as public sector undertakings, in response to the fact that public sector undertakings, because they operated under a legal framework, had social justice as one of their reference points, had labor laws and labor rights protections as one of their reference points. Okay, now the fact that came in the way of the so-called the unbridled freedom that the Savarnas had at one point, these kind of public sector undertakings put a shackle on that. It is to break out of that this kind of an industry was developed. You see the heads of these industries, they're all more often than not, Savarna men, Brahmin men who started these things. So this entire context has to be understood in terms of not just the growth of neoliberal capital, but also the hegemony of the Savarna capitalist.
In an era where even Hollywood workers are unionizing and protesting and asking for a fair workplace and wages and all of that, it's very this is the thing, that this caste oligarchy that controls this kind of an industry, and the kind of education that these IT sector youth, the engineering streams and all that receive, where politics is completely, the understanding of social studies is completely removed from their education system, is where they don't know what their political rights are and how they should bargain for it. And as a result of which, when they come into the workforce, they think that they are above the rest of the kind of labor industry, and they are a cut unto themselves, and they don't need unions anymore to function.
So I think the problem when one says union, right? People immediately imagine some red flags and the left CPIM and CPI coming and shutting down shop. But in this Quora story also, we spoke to a lot of people asking, why don't you have employees associations within your company? Forget politicized unions. But what we thought, we found is that these white-collar employees don't want it themselves. They look down upon it.
No, it depends on the
That's what I was
season.
going to say. Is that
quickly? I'll just make this point. Sorry, the story says that it depends on the season. When there's a downturn, there are these layoffs that happen. Then everybody wants to unionize. When there is this bullish kind of atmosphere in the industry, where there are more jobs than there are people, then there are people have choice. So that time they don't want unions. I'm sorry. That's the.
No, it's all of what you've said is true, which is there is definitely a class consciousness. We are educated class, and we don't need the same kind of protections that, factory workers need. There's the association of unions with communism. There's the association of unions with factory or blue collar work, which is not us. And there is also it's the same attitude they have for all kinds of rights, right? Like, this won't happen to me. Right? The sexual harassment doesn't happen to me, so I don't need these protections. This, layoffs don't happen to me. It happens to people who don't perform well or people who are substitutes. And Sudipto, it's not that the bench strength is only in IT companies. Yeah. Even whether it is your cricket team or your football team, everything has people on the bench. You just don't use the term bench, right? You have the 11th, 12th, 13th, whatever, in order to send people in. So anywhere where you need quick substitution, you have mission critical, processes, you have people like this. But the attitude of looking down upon this, and it's not just lack of political awareness and political rights, it's half-baked political awareness and political rights, which thinks that if you unionize, you'll actually have industry leave, you're actually imposing a penalty on the free market, right? Collectivization is a penalty on free market. This kind of half-baked thinking, this is why they'll quickly go after, this is why in Kerala there's no industry.
Yes.
No, and they'll say compared to New York, when you don't know the history of unionization in New York, right?
New York and LA have some of the largest IT unions. I mean,
used
Silicon,
to,
even now. I mean, there are more unions
there.
there.
The Bay Area is unionizing, right?
Yeah. So, now, not related to this, but there's also another conversation which is spurred by Infosys Narayana Murthy saying that people should work long hours, 70 hours, 80 hours, and that's very good for.
And his buddy, the L&T guy, no?
And L&T guy, L&T guy has also been supporting it.
Subramanian.
Yeah,
Dhanya, him saying it, he's a industry captain, he can say whatever he wants. But, see how quickly the policy also shifts to kind of...
No, I don't think these guys say it without something in mind.
Because Karnataka government gave a proposal saying that let's make it 12 hours a day. And
14 hours.
14 hours a day.
Yeah. No, during COVID, actually, a lot of states did increase the working hours to 11 and 12, but they took it back for multiple reasons. This is Karnataka, Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh. A lot of states brought. Tamil Nadu tried to bring, but they couldn't at all. But there was opposition. Plus, they said it's only to fill the gap of whatever problems happened during COVID, right? But I feel like Narayana Murthy and others saying this is not really empty words. You see more and more industry heads saying this kind of stuff. We may see a policy change, and that too impacting blue-collar workers more than the white-collar workers.
That's why what the L&T guy said is also significant, which is that even construction labor we are not able to get because of welfare guarantees and MNREGA. They're relaxing and, they're not coming and doing the work. And increasingly, even IT professionals are refusing to relocate. They want work from home jobs wherever they are. They don't want to move the way we used to move. There is an expectation that labor can be kind of yanked around and, deployed at will at where the job requires, as if these are not humans, but these are pieces, going back to, kind of what you were alluding to, right? These are actual humans, but not in their eyes. These are pieces that make up my business and I should be able to place them wherever I want. Kind of an expectation is there. In some ways, I almost feel like there's a generation gap. These old businessmen, right? And men typically, upper caste men, they feel like they have a right to control other people's lives in terms of number of hours. What are you doing outside those hours? Where should you be sitting? Where should you be located? It's almost like individuals don't have the autonomy to decide for themselves what their work lives need to be.
And what is merit? And that is so scary. You mentioned upper caste Indian men, and if you zoom out a little, suddenly you look at the world and it's all these either white men or upper caste men who are computer uncles. Okay, you have an Elon Musk, you have that Amazon head, and all these people, they are deciding global policy now. And that is the scary thing. The Trump government is, shadow run by these characters. And Narayan Murthy, Mohandas Pai, these technocrats and all these people, just because they can run an IT company in a finite, walled-in kind of a space, they think that they can run a country, they can run a city. That is what is truly scary. That they think they can run society like an algorithm.
I think it's okay that they think that. I think what's scary is that government actually thinks that they can do it. And therefore, every time a new government assumes office, it doesn't matter, which flavor of government is this. They're the first ones to be invited and to be, asked, what should we do in Bangalore next?
Make other people work more.
Yeah, this uncontrolled capitalism that we are having now, this multinationals who can acquire and dispose of humans like they are acquiring some bunch of furniture or some machinery. That is what we are seeing here. Whereas, Factories Act and all of that came in to ensure that there is a dignified work productivity life that you can have. And even with Ford and later, I think Microsoft came up with experiments to say, to see like if you reduce the work hours, whether the productivity will increase. And the answer is yes, that the productivity will increase the more you let humans have a kind of social life outside
but
their
Leena,
work life.
all of these things came because the workers actually fought for them.
Right.
And so long as Karnataka's IT workers don't fight for them and themselves think, themselves to be too high and this is, too little for them or like below, look.
Not just Karnataka, everywhere, right? If
Yeah,
the governments
it's
want
not
to
going to
increase
happen.
But the state governments want all these multinational companies to come and have big offices and boast about it.
She called me Narayana Murthy of the media in the last episode. And therefore, just as a devil's advocate, what if some people want to work 90 hours? That's what I saw another old journalist saying in a video, veteran journalist. But what if some people want to work for the nation, for nation building?
Yeah, I know. One of my previous boss just works day and night and drives everyone crazy. But it doesn't mean that everyone else would also want to have that. So the choice is, everything is about choice.
No,
right?
but I think when you make rules, there's no choice. The rule has to be minimal hours only. Yeah.
No, just beyond the hours, just another point I wanted to underline is this question of diversity, equity and inclusivity, which now is in the past. It is part of wokeism. Right, it's part of one past life that we
Baby bathwater, everything has been thrown out.
Bathwater, everything is gone. It's so ironical. In India, and Indian industries functioning here should have probably taught a few lessons to the West about DEI because we have such strong affirmative action policies. Instead, what happened is when American companies and Western companies started doing DEI, then Bangalore companies also started doing DEI, and they would do DEI for racism, and of course, gender, definitely, gender, sexuality, race. Okay, wherein in India the question is caste, not race. So all
now
these
they are stopping DEI.
They are stopping DEI means you can imagine nothing is going to happen in Bangalore, even that little bit that was happening.
Anna, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just that, some of the commentary that's coming from people like Narayana Murthy. Firstly, obviously, there is a class difference and the complete obliviousness to the compulsions of people who are their employees. Listen, by all means, if he wants to work for 90 hours, let him work for 90 hours. But most of his employees will be people who will be going home, having chores to do, will want to and need to spend quality time with their children, with their spouses, their partners, the families, friends, and so much of it is also several of you pointed out. It's the men who are saying this mostly, right? Because when women, even the women who are in these positions, they don't see themselves as being removed from family responsibilities. They're still overseeing their children's homework and their children's healthcare and so on and so forth. When you are this rich a person and you are also of the gender that assumes that that's not your responsibility, then you're completely freed up and you're being served by somebody else. Also, apart from the class, caste, and gender thing, I think that when we say generational, I think there's some of them are feeling a certain resentment because there was a generation that sure worked very hard and got India to a particular place, and the world has also changed. People who are even people like us, we have options to work from home. We have the option to say we'd rather not move cities, and I feel like there's a resentment that their generation didn't have that option, so why should the rest of us? Which is so petty, because why are all of us working if not to make the world a slightly better place for coming generations? So instead of celebrating that younger people have the option of work from home and younger people are more mindful of their mental health and things like that, which by the way is something that our generations worked on building awareness for, instead of being happy about that, they are bitter and resentful. And I think they need to be called out for their bitterness and their pettiness.
Yeah.
Who wants to move to Delhi anyway?
And let's also not
Anna
forget.
does.
Anna is a Delhi Malayali.
Stuck.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, in the first episode of South Central, we spoke about Anna Vetticad, where Leena, her friend, said, there's a journalist called Anna. Once I went and spoke to her and she just looked through me. That was South Central's introduction to Anna Vetticad. So, Anna, do not look through Leena this time. When we go to the discussion, which is regarding an article, this is our second topic of the day. It's an article which Anna has written in Article 14. It's a website that you should check out if you haven't already. It's about the official and unofficial censorship of movies in the Modi era. Now, it's a really long article. Anna investigated it for 11 months. In fact, just before that, she wrote a story for the News Minute and News Laundry also, where she spoke about the few people who are actually going against this grain of censorship and of, Hindutvaization of our movies. Anna, you start your story with this Tamil movie maker, Arun Karthik, whose movie Nasir has just disappeared. That's what you're saying, that it was it never reached the theaters or OTT. Can you explain what happened to Nasir and a little bit of your story?
Yes. So, I had over the years, in the past 10 years especially, I've been having conversations with directors, producers, writers, and I began to realize that there is such an atmosphere of fear in all film industries in this country, but also that within the Hindi film industry, there is a capitulation, unlike in several of India's other film industries, where you have many, many more people pushing back. So I wanted to investigate what is going on over here and found that in fact there was far more. The ridiculous levels of censorship to which one is seeing, especially in the Hindi film industry, it's really bizarre. I've given a lot of examples in the article. So the article is about how right now in India there are multiple tiers of censorship. It is not just the CBFC. Now we get to see some occasions when one or two high-profile films are attacked by the right wing, and then like the Tamil film Annapurni was down from Netflix, and so on and so forth. But there is so much more that is going on behind the scenes, where films are being submitted to the censor board and then they're just disappearing. They're simply not being cleared. Or a film is picked up by a streaming platform, and that was where the example of Nasir came in, because Nasir is Arun Karthik's film that has done very well on the International Film Festival circuit. It won awards in India and abroad, and any critic who has seen it has had only good things to say about it. And with a lot of fanfare, it was the release of the film on a streaming platform in India was announced. Now, the very fact that a film like this would be released on a streaming platform is worth celebrating, because small indie films in India struggle for space. But on top of that, this film is about a Muslim sari salesperson in living in an environment in Tamil Nadu where Hindutva is on the rise. Now, there are streaming platforms are not, as of now, the government doesn't enforce a requirement for a CBFC certification for films on streaming platforms. It doesn't enforce it. But increasingly, streaming platforms are voluntarily submitting their films for certification, because they are so afraid that if they start streaming the film and then there is a protest, so they want this little backup to be able to say, oh, but we got it certified and look, it was cleared, right, by the censor board. So Sony Live, which is the platform that had announced that they would release Nasir, decided at the last minute to submit it for certification. And that's it. That's the last that we've heard of it. They didn't announce what has happened after that. I've been told off the record that the film simply didn't get a CBFC certification, but there has been no official announcement about it. They were not willing to talk to me. The platform wasn't willing to talk to me. They've not given any statement to anybody. So you have this young, talented filmmaker who's made a widely acclaimed film that his country isn't getting to see. So apart from the fact that we as a people are being deprived of many beautiful works of art that are getting stuck in various ways, lives are being destroyed, right? There are people I know who are dealing with mental health issues because they are, their careers could have taken off and gone in a completely different direction and just not happening because people haven't seen their work. There's another film I've mentioned. I'm hoping that your listeners will read the article. But one film I'll talk about over here is Aadhaar. It's a Hindi film. Again, it did well on the festival circuit, and its release was announced. And it had a CBFC certification. This is where I'm talking about multiple layers of censorship. It had got a CBFC clearance, and then suddenly it just disappears. And then the director told the press that basically the UIDAI decided that the name Aadhaar gives them the right to watch the film, and they asked for a huge number of cuts. And that film has disappeared. The producers are not releasing it. Producers have gone to the extent, the director has told me this, the producers have gone to the extent of ghosting him. So right now, when you're a filmmaker in India, you're dealing with, firstly, producers, streaming platforms, directors, writers, everyone is wary. So there's the industry wariness. Then you get to the CBFC. CBFC is just sitting on films. Then you might get a CBFC clearance and you still may not get released because either streaming platforms are afraid or your film may be pulled down even after it's got a clearance because right-wingers decided to protest, or some random person somewhere decided that they're offended, or some other government statutory body decides that they want to pick on the film. So it's the censorship is happening at multiple levels, and because nobody knows what could possibly happen, so now even at the writing stage, the casting stage, the editing stage, filmmakers are constantly second guessing and they're not just second guessing the CBFC, they're second guessing any random human being out there who might stand in the way of their film's release. So that's a gist of the article.
So pre-censorship, there are multiple layers to it. But Sudipto, you read that part about Diljit Dosanjh's movie.
Yeah.
So Anna's article talks about this. What is the movie's name? The Diljit Dosanjh movie?
Punjab 95.
Punjab 95. So that movie is never released till now. And they've asked for so many cuts in that movie.
No, but what's interesting about those cuts, and you also kind of go into that. So the cuts also were to do with Indira Gandhi, and it was a little. The moment we got that doubt, she answers why, and I think Anna should answer why the cuts that were asked included cuts about Indira Gandhi.
Do not mention Indira.
Yeah, do not mention Indira Gandhi and all that. And of course, in a film about Punjab, about militancy, one of the cuts they had asked for is that you should mention Punjab itself.
Right.
We'll just say it's Kerala or something.
Kerala or something. But Anna, do you want to talk about that particular Indira Gandhi section so that?
Yes, Punjab 95 was submitted to the censor board more than 2 years ago. The reason why, like I said, I really want readers to read the article, but I will talk about this film because it already made news because it was selected for the Toronto International Film Festival and then withdrawn. And at that point, nobody knew why it was withdrawn. But of course, during the course of my investigation, I found out that there was a censor board official who, in fact, informally requested the producers to withdraw the film from TIFF, from Toronto, because it was already at the censor board by then. And so the producers withdrew the film, hoping, I suppose, that this would be good. It would be good PR for them with the censor board. But it's still been, I mean, more than 2 years actually since the film was submitted, and it's disappeared. There is very little logic to the question, to the cuts that they have been asked for. Like you're saying, Punjab police. So this is a story of a human rights activist, a real life human rights activist whose life is well chronicled in the media, who was murdered by the Punjab police, and there were convictions. There were 6 Punjab police personnel who were convicted for his murder. This man was investigating unauthorized cremations of Punjabi individuals who disappeared and nobody knew, without a trace. And he found, his allegation and his investigations were that they were murdered by the Punjab police, and the Punjab police was quietly cremating them. So this is what he is investigating, and ultimately he himself was killed. This man has traveled to Canada. He has spoken about these violations, human rights violations in other countries. But you would think that because this happened, it happened in the 1985 to 95 period. And his murder happened when the Congress was in power at the center and in the state. So you would imagine that a BJP controlled censor board would be delighted because this is a film that would embarrass the Congress, right? But they have been asking for the most illogical cuts. Like, exactly, how do you talk about violence in Punjab, militancy in Punjab, not talk about the pogrom of Sikhs in Delhi, not mention Indira Gandhi? How do you show Punjab police, and they're supposed to be asked to mute the word Punjab every time Punjab police is mentioned? They're supposed to give fictional names to Amritsar, to Taran Taran. They're not supposed to show the flags of any country, including India. I mean, and this is all a true story. This is a true story that the film is telling.
So now, Anna, so Diljit Dosanjh met Narendra Modi recently, right? So maybe because of that, you never know. But I want to just pick one point and then come to Sudipto. She said that it does not make any logic that a movie which could actually embarrass the Congress is something the BJP CBFC does not want to release. But I have a theory here that they actually don't want to encourage any kind of dissent, right? Any kind of questioning, whether it is of their government or another government, because that behavior can then be projected onto their government. Example I want to give is, there is art festival called Ragam, which is held in NIT in Calicut. I mean, as a student, I have contested in that thing. So Ragam is named after Rajan, a student in Kerala who was killed during the emergency. And it's one of those murders which actually brought down the Karunakaran government in Kerala. The NIT now, which is under the union government also, wants the name of Ragam changed. Ragam has been so for many, many years, for decades now. So I feel anything to do with dissent. So they're like, Rajan was a Naxal, you cannot have the name Ragam. While we would think the BJP will be happy to have that name because it continuously embarrasses the Congress, right? But I feel they just don't want any kind of dissent, and therefore pre-censorship works very well for them. Like Anna saying, everybody is now second guessing. So they cut down on scenes. I have a friend who's a filmmaker who was going to make a movie on a Muslim person. I think that movie has gotten called off because there was so much controversy even when it was announced. So Deepto, you want to say something?
No, just the thing that in addition to this, I think there's also some ideological considerations over here, and that Anna's article refers to that, which is that the present relations of the BJP with the Sikh community, and the developments that have happened in Canada, and those things are, I suppose, a reason for them to now, in a way, even defend some of what Indira Gandhi did, and for that matter, I mean, a lot of what Indira Gandhi did has been a kind of a template for this government. She ran it officially. These people are running an unofficial emergency. Speaking of Indira Gandhi, just as a kind of a side note, Indira Gandhi's time was also known for a lot of censorship of films, and one of the films she censored was Ritvik Ghatak's Amar Lenin. This series of films he had made, which I think Meghe Dhaka Tara was also one of the films. This trilogy of films he made, which were overtly leftist. So it was banned during her time. And guess what? Right now, just yesterday or day before, there was a school in Bengal that was trying to screen these films. And the Trinamool Congress goons and the government and the local MLA cracked down on that school and its authorities, preventing them from showing these films because they are left-oriented and because, of course, there's Lenin in those films. So
this is something I find very interesting, right? In Tamil Nadu in the 50s and the 60s, the Dravidian movement rose by making films that were anti-establishment, right? They used films, media scripts, and plays as a weapon to, for their rise, to aid their rise, political rise, to communicate with the masses and to snatch power, right? And then if you contrast that with what NTR did, he also used films as a medium, not consciously. His appearance in films had influenced the people to such a degree, they saw him as, Krishna Avataram, whatever, and voted him. So you can already see a contrast between one deliberately making, because Anna and Karunanidhi were particularly known for scripts and MGR for the kinds of roles he portrayed. And in fact, there is the comment that Vijay has deliberately chosen the roles he chose, then, carefully orchestrated before his. So it has always been anti-establishment. That hasn't necessarily been cracked down at all, because even the Tamil films that were censored, like Vishwarupam and stuff, had nothing to do with anti-establishment, right? Had something to do with other things. So leaving that aside for 1 second, is completely different than what is happening under Hindutva, where the films that are being used to further establishment, like your Kashmir Files and your Kerala story. After the establishment has acquired power, it is now weaponizing the films not to, obviously they already have power, right? It's to continue to propagandize their kind of, their belief and philosophy and shut down anything that's against that, right? Very different than what happened in Tamil Nadu, for example, right? The polar opposite.
What about Malayalam cinema, Dhanya, back in the day and all of that when the left was the
Okay,
only
you're
force?
asking wrong person
person.
about
Yeah, but
movies.
These Leena Moneymaker-like films today are being shut down again by the same Hindutva. It is not being shut down by the state there, right? And I'd also make a case for a federal version of this. If you had censor boards that have to do with states, if states had their own censor boards, then as a creator, I at least have a choice to release my work in other places where it may not offend, or at least seem to offend people's sentiments. Now I'm stuck, right? Maybe Nasir can get a platform everywhere else except in the Hindutva sensitive states. Why should it? Nobody in Kerala or Tamil Nadu or Andhra might care, right?
Yeah, firstly, Leena, thank you for your kind words. I think this is compensation for you having told the listeners of South Central that I looked through you the first time you met me. I've finally forgiven you for that. But by the way, I do still do reviews, but I do reviews only occasionally. I want to address one of the points raised by, I think, Dhanya, was it you that said that there was a friend who's making a film with a Muslim hero and the film has just disappeared?
No, with a Muslim character. The film was supposed to be based on a historical Muslim character.
Character, yes. So one of the theories about Punjab 95 and the reason why the CBFC is clamping down on it is that it has a Muslim hero. And I don't mean the actor who's Muslim, Sikh. It has a Sikh hero. And I don't mean the actor who's playing the lead. I mean the character who is a real life hero. And I think there is a mindset within this government that members of minority communities should not be built up as heroes, as rebels, as people who have taken on the establishment in any way. So theoretically, if you look at it on a very literal level, yes, Jaswant Singh Khalra was fighting in a circumstance where the Congress was in power at the center and in the state. But that is not what this present BJP government is looking at. What it is looking at is a Sikh man who took on the establishment. And if you transpose that to the present situation, where relations between this government and the Sikh community are not very good, and there is the whole India-Canada situation, our relations are slipping down, and the farmers' protests is something that, several people I spoke to feel that the government has felt humiliated by the farmers, and the most visible faces at the farmers' protests were Sikhs. And on top of which, Diljit Dosanjh, who plays the lead character in this film, is someone who openly supported the farmers' protests. There is a very clear, this is something several producers of the Hindi film industry told me, that they are avoiding making films where the lead character is a Muslim, especially a Muslim who is a positive character, who has who has positive, inspiring qualities. The fact that this is happening in our country just now, when even now, three of our most prominent Hindi film stars are Muslims. Some of the very prominent film stars in southern India are Christians. I mean, this is the measure of self-censorship that's happening. But Leena, I want to make what I think is a very crucial point, that in this article on censorship and generally in all discussions, I think it's important for us to draw a distinction between the Hindi film industry and India's remaining film industries, because I've never seen a bunch of people capitulate so quickly and so unquestioningly as the Hindi film industry. Whatever the flaws of Tamil Nadu and Kerala and Karnataka may be, there is a pushback. There is a fight back. They're looking for ways to. Now, there is a film I will not name, which the producers felt they would not be able to get a clearance if they were to submit it to an examining committee in Karnataka. So they submitted it to an examining committee in Tamil Nadu. Which means they had to get someone on board, because you can't just randomly submit it to any state. People are looking for ways. The Malayalam film industry, whatever the flaws might be, and I am constantly critical of the Malayalam film industry, there is an amazing amount of pushback, and also so many things that are normalized in these industries, such as the representation of religious minorities. A Tamil film with a Christian hero is not like something that is not a Halley's Comet. A Malayalam film with a Muslim hero is not a Halley's Comet. So these are things that were already established in these industries and normalized. So they are continuing to do these things, whereas the Hindi film industry wasn't doing these things even in the best of times, and now they're pulling back even further. And not only are they avoiding the representation of powerful, inspiring figures from minority communities, they've of course erased members of oppressed castes completely, but also that even the casting, I've mentioned some of that. But if a Muslim actor is in a scene, there are certain tweaks that are being made to the scene because the actor is Muslim, not that the character is Muslim. It's heartbreaking, but it's a story that needs to be told so that people realize at the number of levels at which this is taking place.
The Hindi film industry has a very long history of being opted into the nation building project. Like, all of Bollywood actors, they were close with the Nehruvian project of how India should be developed, and the movies of that era really showed that. So this hobnobbing with the powerful and the government forces, and I think that is built into the DNA of the Bollywood and how it operates. And so when Narendra Modi invites over, they all put on their best clothes and go for photo ops without thinking of what it is doing, that kind of power is doing to their industry and creativity.
I dare say that as an exception or as an polar opposite to what Bollywood represents, you only have the Tamil and the Malayalam. You cannot say South Indian cinema. If you look at Kannada cinema's history, if you look at Telugu cinema's history, I mean, these are industries.
Telugu has had a lot of movies on Naxalism.
That way, Hindi also you will find
Kannada
some movies
also,
here and
incredible movies.
I mean, the older, the 80s, 70s generation of movies.
So also you will find in Hindi, you will find some Garam Hawa somewhere, you will find some other films.
Is Garam Hawa a movie or you're just saying?
Garam Hawa is a film, it's not just...
Rajamouli's films, for instance, are very much, pandering to the Hindutva project, where you take a person who is from an oppressed community in RRR, and he is in real life, from whatever accounts one has read of him, one has read that he was a very feisty rights advocate. And here you're showing him as being worshipful towards the Ramcharan character, who in real life was also an activist. And I'm not saying allies should not be represented, but this twisting of stories. So yes, I must make another distinction. So Malayalam, Tamil, definitely they stand out in their resistance, but Hindi cinema, independent cinema that is not being made by big studios, and some of that is Kannada indies. Pedro, which is one of the films that I've mentioned in the article, is a Kannada indie which has been was not allowed to be shown at the Bangalore International Film Festival because what? I mean, there was no specific reason beyond one of the supporters of the BJP who was among the organizers said it is a quote-unquote religiously sensitive topic. But the film got a censor board clearance. So it's like there's no place at which you'll say, oh, okay, I'm through now. Because even once your film is in theaters and even once it has gotten to an OTT, you're not sure whether it might be pulled down. But Sudipto, you were saying
No,
something.
just the point that, in the making of cinema, in anything creative, literature, and all of these things, ideology and how that plays a role in creating a conducive atmosphere. So you're talking about a Kerala in which communist movements are very strong. You're talking about Tamil Nadu, where the Dravidian movement was there. Bengal, both the communist movement and the feminist movement, coincided for a period during the 90s and things, the 80s, 90s, which resulted in a certain kind of cinema. And I feel like, that is also something which is reflecting in Bollywood, isn't it? Which is that it is also a reflection of a certain ideology. And that ideology is a cowbelt, Hindi, like...
The other way to look at it is to say that your Malayalam cinema, your Tamil cinema, even other Bengali and even other state cinema is rooted in the culture and people of that state.
Mhm.
Hindi cinema is nobody's cinema. It is some artificial creation of... It is not cinema from the soil of Uttar Pradesh
Sure.
or the soil of Uttarakhand or the soil of Madhya Pradesh. It is from inside the Bombay studios, right? It
From
belongs to
Bandra.
everybody and it belongs to nobody.
Nobody.
Yeah.
And
No, but-
therefore, it's more appropriatable
Right.
in
Anna
that
does
sense.
mention that the corporatization is what
Couple of small points I want to make. One is that when we started with this Ranbir, I always call him Alu Alia.
What?
Sorry, he's
Who you talking
Beer
about?
Biceps.
Allahabadia.
Allahabadia.
Allahabad. I don't know why I call him Alu Alia. But this Ranbir
Same difference. It's okay.
Beer Biceps. Let's not forget that the government tried to bring a broadcasting bill, which was taken back last year. But one of the things that the broadcasting bill said is that every YouTuber or every OTT has to have its certification committees. For example, if I run a travel blog, I have to have a certification committee with a SC/ST community person, an activist, etc. 3 people. And OTTs also, for any movies, they're supposed to have an elaborate certification process. Remember that the broadcasting, this is all happening even without a broadcasting bill. Anna is saying that OTTs are actually censoring or trying to censor movies, though there is no demand for it, right? There is no actual legality. This is another problem. Even if there is no law, people are so scared now that they are ready to do whatever is possible just to make sure that movies either released or they don't want to get in trouble. So, because we are discussing this topic, I went back and read William Shirer's, not read the entire book, it's really big, but I went and read portions of William Shirer's book on Hitler. And there are 2 small instances which I thought was very important for us. One, he talks about a socialist playwright called Hauptmann. So, Hauptmann, before Hitler's time, was a socialist playwright. He used to write a lot of plays which are very popular in Germany. But the moment Hitler came to power, he just flipped. And he then started coming on stage with Goebbels. So he writes, I shall never forget the scene of the closing night of his last play, The Daughter of the Cathedral, where Hauptmann walked onto the stage arm in arm with Goebbels. So he talks about how people just change, right? From socialists, they became Nazis. But the good thing is, apparently the movies became so boring. Like your Kerala Story, Kashmir Files and all that, which is being made. These 2, I think, were better movies. But the propaganda movies were so bad that nobody was going to watch it. And at one point, they brought a rule that you can't hiss. People are booing in the theaters. So they brought a rule that if you hiss or boo in the theater, you'll be punished.
So, what kills them is time. Time and, somehow time exposes the truth and, this propaganda comes undone. But
a lot of propaganda movies have not been successful.
But I think the greater tragedy is what Tara was mentioning, the number of films that are now going to go without unwatched. So, yeah.
But let Anna's article not go unread. So log on to article 14 and read that article.
Strongly recommended.
Pretty long. So 2 recommendations this week from me. One is, of course, Anna's article. And the second is our own article, Lakshmi Priya's, which is on the manosphere. Anna, you want to give your recommendation for the week?
Well, okay, you've stolen one of my recommendations because I was going to recommend Lakshmi Priya's Manosphere. I have written about the Manosphere and incels and MRAs in the past, and I thought there was very little that could disturb me, but I think she has gone into it so deeply, and I've seen at least a couple of sweet little boys that I know who have grown into their late teens and early 20s being slightly antagonistic towards women. So I would very strongly recommend this article. And I know that at least one of the boys I'm talking about is quite taken by Mr. Tate. The other is, well, there's a book I read called Bread, Cement, Cactus by Annie Zedi. And it's about what it means. What is the meaning of home? And, what is the meaning of home to a woman when you are brought up your entire life being told that you are Parayadhan? What is the meaning of home to a Muslim in India when you are constantly being told, go home to Pakistan? And really, on a personal note, on social media, I keep getting told to go home to Vatican. So, what is the meaning of home? It is such a moving, such a sweet book that I would strongly recommend it. And all the films that I've mentioned in my Article 14, when they come out, as and when they do, hopefully, please do watch them, because I've seen almost all of them, and most of them are really lovely films, and it breaks my heart to think that nobody in this country has seen them beyond the festival circuit.
So you know what I do when these movies release, which are being, what is it, protested against by this by the Hindutva groups, I go and book tickets. I don't actually go watch because I don't have time, but just for my solidarity, I book the ticket so that movie has my money, right? I do it all the time. Yeah, Leena, what is your recommendation?
That's a good move. Maybe I should consider
You
it.
also buy books and not read them?
No, but I do take a lot of independent media subscription. One a month I take.
Right. Yeah. That is something I diligently do, because what we practice, what we preach, we need to practice first. My recommendation is going to be something I read on the Roundtable India. I was thinking and reading about Kumbh, and I really liked this piece, The Ritualistic Hypocrisy of Caste Hindus, the Kumbh Mela and the Myth of Purity. How it talks about, Ganges is this land where everything will get pure, but against waters, if an untouchable touches it, it goes impure in Hinduism. So that whole contradiction. And along with it, let me also recommend Annihilation of Caste by Ambedkar, with annotations from Arundhati Roy that I really liked and changed the way I thought about caste and how India operates. So that's my two recommendations.
For starters, I definitely want you all to go and check out that article by Cora Abraham. It's called "Tied to a Laptop." No, let me just check.
Yeah,
this.
it's fine. We'll put it.
It's called "Your Laptop is Your Life." Now, this is an article which should give you a sense of history when you're confronting the facts that as they're emerging now. This layoff in Infosys and the other anti-labor policies. Do check out Cora's article. Another book I want to recommend. A lot of these conversations that we have sometimes can become a little despondent, can make you feel a little hopeless. And this is a book which should give you a sense of how time runs in cycles. It's a book called Seeking Begumpura. It's by Gail Omvet. It speaks about Begumpura is Begum, which means gum means sorrow, a land without any sorrow. And she talks about how there have been various attempts in the history of India to counter patriarchy, Brahmanism, caste, and these anti-caste struggles. You had Kabir, and you had Basava, and all of these things. So she's looking at various traditions which contested the status quo. And Begumpura, Seeking a Begumpura, is an article I wanted to check. I mean, a book you should check out.
I recommend two books. One is a piece of fiction called The Lost Daughter it was written in Italian by this lady called Ella Ferrante. And the English translation is available. It was also made into a movie, which I realized only now as I was trying to Google the author's name. But it's, I actually highly recommend, it says Lost Daughter, but it's a disturbing, unsettling about being a mum. But I'd actually recommend that not only that women read it, but men read it, because it's about mentally what you go through. It's not about the birthing process or anything. It's just leading life when you are somehow expected to be a mother in this world. It's like the Great Indian Kitchen type of thing, but nothing to do with that.
I can write a book on that.
We can all write books on that, tomes on that.
Yeah.
But it's beautifully done, because it's not the very Indian sort of overt way of doing it, right? Okay, and then I recommend the piece of nonfiction, The Politics of Poverty Reduction, by James Manner and others. So it's a series of essays about a set of welfare policies that came out between 2004 and 14 during the UPA years. So includes MNREGA and all of those policies. It's interesting now, because policies take a decade to kind of bear fruit. It's interesting now to look at them in retrospect and see, what happened. How did such remarkable policies actually come about, because many of them had a lot of opposition, right? Both within the government at that point, from bureaucracy, from even the judiciary, and yet they made it. And then, some of them we take for granted today because they've existed for so long now. So it's totally worth. And James Manner is just this incredibly amazing guy, right? Who's done so much of policy work in India and in South India. So,
Okay, so all the recommendations are over. The episode is coming to a close. For all those who are watching, listening to us, please remember we are celebrating our 11th birthday, and you can take a subscription and gift a subscription. And that's your way of telling us that you care, that you want us to exist, you want us to grow. Thank you, Leena, Tara, Sudipto, Anna. Thank you to my producer, Bhuvan, Maria Teresa Raju, who is our note taker, and our editor, Jasim and Dharani. Thank you all for listening.